Hi friends, it's Miss Rachel. Today you're going to get a lesson on Juneteenth, which is a holiday celebrated in the United States. I am not an expert on Juneteenth. I have not celebrated it my whole life, but I feel like it's my job as your teacher to expose you to different celebrations, just like we did during the school year when we were in person. One of the best ways, though, to learn about a different culture or a different celebration that you haven't ever experienced is by celebrating. So maybe you will check out some of the virtual celebrations through our Madison community or our in person celebrations through our Madison community with safe social distancing. Happy learning! Juneteenth marks a day in history that enslaved Texans learned that they were free. So it stands for June 19th. This happened in 1865. It sounds like a while ago, but it wasn't really that long ago. We're still seeing forms of slavery or forms of lack of freedom today. So while the government had granted freedom, many were still not free. Many people were still forced to work and didn't find out that they were legally free until months later. This day was originally made to honor lost loved ones and honor all those who had fought for freedom. So there's a little bit about this day that shows the government stood up for freedom, but there was a lot of work that went in before this day. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some important people that came before June 19th, 1865, that helped in the fight for freedom. First is Frederick Douglass. Some of you may have heard about Frederick Douglass before. He's a very famous abolitionist. An abolitionist is somebody who fights for freedom or to abolish slavery or end slavery. He was originally an enslaved man and then escaped by disguising himself as a sailor. He ended up being a great speaker and talked about his experience as a slave. He wrote a story about his time when he was a slave and spoke out about women's rights and the rights of Black soldiers. That was really brave and courageous of him to speak about being enslaved because his former slave owners could have found and captured him. So we honor Frederick Douglass for all of his bravery and hard work. He also met with people who were higher up, like the president and senators who were in charge of making the laws, to tell them that Black soldiers deserved rights too. Sojourner Truth was another person who fought for to end slavery and fought for enslaved people. She was free, and then her children were not. So she went to court because they had sold her son over state lines, which was technically illegal. And not only did she go to court to fight for her son, but she won against a white man, which was almost unheard of during this time. So she was very brave by putting her name out there and considered one of the great storytellers and speakers to inspire other enslaved people. The last one is Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman is known for being an Underground Railroad conductor. The Underground Railroad was a path that led to Canada or to freedom for people who were enslaved. She was famous because she led 19 different escapes from the South to help people who were enslaved, and over 300 people were helped by Harriet Tubman. So that took a lot of bravery because if you were caught, you could have been hurt or returned to your slave owner. So today we celebrate Juneteenth through festivals, parades, music, art, storytelling, picnics, and barbecues, but it's also an important time to emphasize the activism that's going on in our communities and the continued fight for equity and justice for our Black, Indigenous, and people of color community and neighbors. We have to keep in mind that even though this holiday celebrates freedom, there are many people who are still enslaved after June 19th. The United States right now recognizes the 4th of July as their Independence Day, but we know in fact that on that day, there were many, many Americans who were not free. Juneteenth is still not a national holiday, and there are other forms of enslavement still going on in the United States today. There's enslavement going on around the world today. All right, I'm going to read a story called Juneteenth for Mazie. Mazie wants to play outside, but it is too late. It's getting dark, Mazie. It's time to stay inside. Mazie wants a cookie, but it's time for bed. Not now, little one. It's too close for bedtime. Maisie wants to stay up late, but she is too little. Bedtime is the rule, sweet girl. Why so grumpy, Sugar Bear? Asked Dad. I can't go where I want, have what I want, or do what I want, answers Maisie. Well, tomorrow you have a celebration, says Dad. What are we celebrating? Asks Maisie. We will celebrate the day your great 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 grandpa Mose crossed into liberty. The day we will be celebrated by us and many more families on the day we call Juneteenth. Dad lifts Maisie in her arms. I bet you get tired of hearing no all the time. Well, great 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 Grandpa Mose heard no even more. Grandpa Mose worked in the fields that stretched all the way to sunset. He and the other slaves would be bone tired, but they had to keep going. Their masters wouldn't let them quit. But as they worked, they thought about freedom. And before they finally went to sleep at night, they prayed about freedom and made plans for change and a better future. Some slaves ran north to freedom, following the bright star in the sky. They sweat, they bled, and they cried till those cries were quieted by a single proclamation from a brave president. Grandpa Mose heard the proclamation read from the balcony of the hotel on the warm June day in Texas. Grandpa Mose heard nothing but cheers, saw nothing but happiness, and felt nothing but pride shared by all those around him. The cheers became dancing, the dancing became celebrating. It went on and on into the night. Grandpa Mose and the others had found freedom. They continued to work, but this time they were paid for their hard work. So they worked and they saved, and they never forgot the moment they heard, the moment that changed their lives forever. But things weren't different. Black people still struggled to stand shoulder to shoulder with white people. They still weren't treated as equals. It wasn't easy, but they never gave up, and every year on Juneteenth they remembered. They marched for jobs, they lobbied for schools and the right to vote, they shouted for opportunity. And every year on Juneteenth, they celebrated and they remembered. They learned and they grew. They forgave. They excelled and achieved. They became heroes. Now, sweet Maisie, it's your turn to celebrate, just like great 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 Grandpa Mose. It's your turn, Maisie, to eat some barbecue and drink some strawberry pop. It's your turn to celebrate and to remember. There are ways to celebrate Juneteenth in Madison. One way is through a rally at Olin Park. That rally is going to lead to a march to the downtown jail because there is an unfair and unequal number of Black, Indigenous, people of color who get imprisoned compared to white people. There's also a dinner at Breeze Stevens with local food vendors. And then the Kujichagulia Madison Center is putting on events virtually to learn about Black cooking, dancing, music, raising youth voices, and art, and poetry and spoken word. So some pretty cool ways that we are trying to raise up our Black voices and Black youth voices. All right, friends, I hope that you learned a little something today. I know that I've been doing a lot of learning recently, and I still have a lot to learn. So you might have questions, you might have corrections, there might have been something I said that was incorrect, and I would love that feedback or your questions. So please reach out, and I miss you all so much, and I hope you have a marvelous day. Happy Juneteenth.